Darja Pajk from Slovenia. Darja is a member of the European Federation of the Hard of Hearing, and she is also a member of the hearing group of PICA. She is a bilateral cochlear implant user and comes from Slovenia. Darja, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ruth, and hello to everybody. My presentation is the funding priorities for adults. So we have heard and will continue to hear about the importance of implant financing, but there are still difficulties in understanding why implantation and then caring for people with implant is so important. Also, from a financial point of view, implantation is definitely more favorable than caring for a person who is unable to communicate and participate equal in society. I have tested on myself almost all the aspects that I will present to you in my presentation. So what I think needs to be kept in mind all the times is specificities of persons with cochlear implants. The ability to understand with cochlear implant is not the same for everyone, and it's not always optimal. Unfortunately, it is somehow often told that after receiving an implant, person can hear immediately and function without problems. This is definitely not the case. They often use additional listening aids. It is certainly not as simple as most imagine, as technology is advancing at the speed of light, and I certainly can't say that about our understandings. So it can happen quickly that you don't know how one gadget is used or connected to another. They have a high desire for normal life and work, as only this leads to independence in taking care of yourself and your family. That is why implantation is extremely important. I would especially emphasize people who have lost their hearing as adults and do not imagine a different life at all. They aspire to have the lifestyle they lived before hearing loss. This means taking care of the family, as it often happens that people lose their hearing in their 40s when they are fully active in the professional work and personal fields of life and care for children. Next slide now. Next slide, please. Is the environment aware of the need for rehabilitation and programming? Time is needed for rehabilitation. However, because hearing rehabilitation is not visible, most people think you can do that very simple, even if you have done your 8-hour job before, are on the road for 2 or 3 hours a day, take care of your family, by the way, and finally dedicate yourself to hearing rehabilitation. Certainly, these performances are misguided, as hearing loss makes you even more tired, and it is difficult or impossible to keep up with such a pace. Rehabilitation is not easy. Very often there is even no rehabilitation at all. You have to take the time to rehabilitate and really focus on it. I'm saying this from my own experience. My left implant, in which I really devoted myself to working with it, serves me, and the right implant is much worse. It is good, but not perfect. And I know that that is also my fault. Indeed, one of the reasons may be the later recipient, and the other is that my motivation is also lower, and I am more involved in the work, so I run out of energy to learn. Processor settings are required, which are not simple because it's hard to figure out which tone of sounds is the best for each person. It is imperative to have access to the settings when you need them, and you need to have as many as you need. Some only 5, somebody maybe 30, depends of individuals. The settings needs to be long enough to find the sound that works best for you. I can say for myself that I hear as I heard at the age of 15, when my hearing was perfect with my left processor. Adapting to new settings is stressful. Just as adapting to anything new can be stressful. Even when we put on new shoes, we need some time to get used to it. And it is crazy to expect our brains to get used to it and in an instant of new sounds and accept them immediately. It is necessary to prepare before each sitting and know what you want to change. It is very difficult to describe to a speech therapist what bothers you. Again, a circumstance that requires work, time, understanding, motivation. Sharing experience with others also makes sense. This way, people with cochlear implants can pass on good information to what we have pointed out on our cochlear implant settings. One needs time for settings. The settings is often not effective within 10 minutes. In order for a speech therapist to take time for a client, he devotes so much time to achieving maximal results, but we know the reality. All of this is often difficult to do if you are employed full-time, yet it is critical for normal life. And this is the plus that the system should see. A person with cochlear implants does their job. It is not a burden of the society, takes care of themselves and their family. Unfortunately, it cannot perform 2 or 3 jobs to be able to finance everything. And it is therefore imperative that the health and social care system understands what it means to have a cochlear implant and live with it. In Slovenia, care for people with cochlear implants is, in my opinion, nicely arranged. And the option that I define as a necessary that in Slovenia actually have. In the environment aware of the need for support for managing the technology, it is necessary to be familiar with technology and the possibilities it provides. If you really know all the possibilities you have available, progress needs to be constantly monitored. It just takes a lot of time and can happen are not up to date with all the news. It is also interesting how a person with cochlear implants is expected to be up to date with everything. Even the person is not a technical expert and does not know the technology well. Most people with cochlear implant don't deal with technology professionally. Some aren't even that interested, even though we are expected to be professionals for everything. Gadgets and listening aids are often not compatible with each other. It can happen that you have too old or too new technology or not compatible. It happened to me, to my cochlear, to my left and right cochlear implant are not compatible. When I'm using a computer, there's no ability to connect both processors with 2 different devices of Bluetooth. And if I listen to amplification with just one processor, well, my brain isn't so plastic as to accept this well. It is easy to forget how everything connects when you don't use gadgets for a long time. We probably all know that. And we have written down somewhere the steps of how we connect everything. But that takes us much time. It stops us so much that life escapes us when we think about how to connect to hear the world around. You often do not have anyone to tell you exactly how things are working. We know that. I'm sure all of us who are using cochlear implant have such an experiences. Often even professional staff does not know exactly how certain things works and connect. This is also very realistic and happen to us in many situations. But even the staff are just people, and it is hard to expect a doctor, audiometrist, speech therapist to explain all the technology of cochlear implant to you. Distributors of manufacturers are often not experts. They're only distributors of articles, and it is sometimes questioned how good they really understand everything. You spent a lot of time studying everything. I don't know if anyone has experience, but I contacted once the company via messenger, and they answered me and informed me how I can act, and that was very perfect. Next slide, please. Is the price of cochlear implants too high in real life considering? Help is required in all aspects of life. If you don't have an implant, it can suddenly become very dependent. Impact on real life, partners, children, jobs. Hearing loss affects your relationship. So often divorces with partners because sometimes it is just too hard. Children have to deal with a situation in which their parent is, they're unable to offer real support. They do not know how to do it. And the parent often finds he needs to support the family, explaining the situation. And that is difficult because he has found himself in an unknown situation. Of course, the situation has prepared strongly over the years, but it is always happens that when we lose our hearing, we are ashamed to admit we don't know how to seek help or where to seek help. All this affects the individual's condition and also his work and career opportunities. Hearing loss leads to depression. We talk about depression so often, but the situation I mentioned before are so often the reason that the person simply cannot stay strong. And also, I need to mention financial problems because of hearing loss and buying devices and asking for help. Bad relationships with family and in the workplace. What do these bad relationships do? Seeking others for help, feeling emotional down in so many situations, and financial aspects. All of this adds cost. If I think of myself, when I lost my hearing, I might lose my job, that I wouldn't be able to take care for my 3 daughters, then I cannot support them to become successful young women. That is just a few points why it is urgently needed to constantly raise awareness that there are opportunities to hear with the help of cochlear implant, to understand the needs after cochlear implantation, to provide people with cochlear implant a broad network of support and understanding, to fund constant processors, upgrades, and settings that are accessible to all, to support funding for bilaterals, to understand that processor change are required and provide replacement processors at a reasonable cost, to understand that people with cochlear implant live a normal life but require some adjustments after cochlear implantation, to understand that it's more favorable for the state budget to provide people with cochlear implants than to take care of a person who is mentally devastated and unable to take care of themselves and their loved ones. And for the end, I would like to emphasize once again that I'm really happy to live in the country which allows me to have 2 implants, to have rehabilitation and support, to have regular settings, and to receive a new processor every 5 years. Of course, all of this is regulated by our health and social system for which we are paying monthly, and also we have high taxes. I think that in any case, caring for a person after implantation is necessary and costs money, but it certainly costs less than caring for a person who needs support in communication during her life and it is emotionally down, and not just her, often her family as well. Thank you. That is all from me.
Thank you very much, Darja. And those are excellent points. There's lots of wonderful comments in the chat box.